e-text link. You should be able to see that soon. The course will be made available there, okay? So instead of purchasing the hard copy, which is this one, this is the 11th edition, looks like this. Okay, this is what I have in my office. So instead of purchasing that, you can purchase the electronic version of it because it is heavy, you know, to carry around. And also they let you purchase it just for, you know, a semester. And so it's cheaper than having to purchase it, you know, for a lifetime. But I always encourage students who are planning to go on, you know, in this major or other majors that need this foundation to keep your textbooks. I even use mine today. Keep your textbooks, okay? All right, let's rock and roll. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? All right, is it in the version where it's just the slide, or can you see my notes? The next slide.
Notes. We can see both.
You can see both? Okay, thank you. So let's change swap. How about now?
That's one. We can only see one side.
So it's not distracting. There you go. All right, so let's rock and roll. So let's start with a few questions that I have for you. What is biology? What is biology? Okay, study of living things. That's Courtney Dunlap in the building. Anyone else? What is biology?
The study of living and growing organisms. Try to word it different, I guess.
Okay, study of living and growing organisms. Okay, what you see on your screen are multicellular organisms on the left, eukaryotic organisms that fall under the domain eukarya. So what is the connection between these two pictures? What is the connection between these two pictures? Can someone tell me? We see cells, and you can see somebody picking up one of these cells with forceps, okay? What is the connection between these two pictures? Anybody?
Those living cells make up those animals.
Okay, so that's one way of approaching it. So these animals have living cells. So if you think about how an animal develops, everything starts from a cell. And then each of those organs have cells in them. They're differentiated. They're specialized, right? So they're specialized for the heart. The kidney cells are specialized for the kidney. But each of those organs has cells. Anyone else? Good. Okay, well, we keep pushing. All right, let's keep going. All right, where are you? There you are. Okay, we've already covered all of this, these properties of living things, okay? So tell me, when we think about things that unify life, all these themes, you know, we categorize life, and we've been talking about it in terms of themes, okay? So living things are organized. There are many hierarchical levels of biological structure, and at each level, there is an emergent property that you don't see on the lower level. So we started with the lowest level, subatomic particle, and we moved our way up. You guys help me, talk me through it. Where do we go? From subatomic particle, what's next?
Atom. Is it a cell?
What'd you say?
Is it a cell that's next?
No.
No, atoms.
Atoms. Subatomic particle. Atom. What's next?
Tissue. No.
Molecule.
No.
Cell.
Molecule.
Oh,
Molecule. Come on, y'all. We're supposed to work on this. Subatomic particle. Atom. What's next?
Molecule.
Molecule. What's next?
Organelle.
Organelle.
Cell.
Organelles are in cells.
Tissue.
Cells are in tissues.
Organ.
Tissues are in organs.
Organ system.
Organs are in organ systems.
Multicellular organism.
Organ systems, these various organ systems are within a multicellular organism.
Population.
Population.
Here I have great Bibles.
Multiple organisms can exist within a population. From population, we move to
Like type of movie with a bunch of special effects.
A community.
okay. Okay, what's next? Why is Janaya the only one talking to me today?
Ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
Y'all should have your notes, right? And then what's
Biome
next?
is next.
Biosphere.
Okay. All right, let's keep plugging. So this is just intro, right? So all living things we know are made of cells. What's in the cell? That heritable information, that genetic information encoded in DNA. All living things show some correlation between structure and function, and living things tend to interact with their environment. They respond to changes in some way. And living things are self-regulating. They regulate through this process that we call regulatory feedback. There is what we call positive feedback, negative feedback regulation, and feed forward. And then all of these living things somehow support the theme of evolution. We've already addressed the fact that living, we went through this in its entirety, right? Make sure you know these different levels of biological organization, okay? We did not cover order, okay? So living things, yes, there's a hierarchy to them, but they're organized. And taxonomists, I'm gonna, somebody type that in the chat. Taxonomists that's a category of scientists, so that's a career, where they're known for classifying things. This is, taxonomists decided this, right? So we go from kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So I know a long time ago, people used to say, King Philip came over for good spaghetti. That's how they memorized it. King Philip came over for good spaghetti. But as time went on, we began to know that there was another level of classification, another level of order. So what is missing from here? It doesn't start with kingdom. What comes? What'd you say, Jemiah?
Domain.
Domain, okay? So domain is what's missing. Everybody see that? From this diagram. See, this was made in 2005. That's why some people say, can I get the older version? Yeah, but sometimes things are missing because science is ever evolving. Okay, are we clear? So how can what's the mnemonic device that we can use? Didn't King Philip come over for good spaghetti? Didn't King Philip come over for good spaghetti? So now when we think about domain, so domain is the kingdoms, they're the broadest units of classification. So what are the domains? Eukaryota, bacteria, archaea. Eukaryota, bacteria, archaea. I told my students to memorize it as BAE. We always say that's my BAE or something like that, right? So BAE, B-A-E, bacteria, archaea, eukaryota, or eukarya. This is the broad, the top level is usually the broadest level. Even if we're talking about hierarchy, biological hierarchy, biosphere was up there, right? So now domain, and under domain is kingdom, they're the broadest units of classification. Okay. So under, we think about our fungi or fungi, some people say, plants, animals, eukaryotes, prokaryotes, right? So these are the kingdoms: fungi, plants, animals, eukaryotes, prokaryotes, okay? And then the domains, eukarya or eukaryota, bacteria, archaea. Now within eukaryota, you find the producers, decomposers, so all these things that you learned a long time ago are just coming back, okay? We've already gone over this last time we met, okay? I'm just reminding you to really think about these different levels of biological organization and how they interact, okay? Now, I want to talk to you about the cell theory, okay? We're going to talk about the cell theory. All living organisms are comprised of what, Michaela? All living organisms are comprised of what, Michaela?
Of cells that come from pre-existing cells.
Okay, they're all made of cells. All living organisms are comprised of cells. So that's something you should always know. Every living thing, not this pen, but me, you, if you have a cat, a dog, a fish, what else? What other pets do you all have? Anybody have any pets other than a cat, dog, fish?
Turtle.
Turtles. Anybody else? Snakes. Anybody else have? All these animal science majors.
A
What'd you say?
gerbil.
A gerbil.
Guinea pig.
Guinea pig. Any other?
Bearded dragon.
A who? Bearded dragon. Okay. What else we have? I had to look that one up. I think that's like a lizard, right?
It's like a small orange lizard.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So every one of those living organisms that you mentioned, they all have what?
Pre-existing cells.
No, that's where they come from.
Oh, I mean, they all have
They all have what?
cells.
Cells, period. In the discussion. If it's a living thing, it has a cell. And that's the cell theory. There are a lot of theories that researchers come up with, but this is one of those theories. The theory is that it doesn't matter what it is. If it's alive, it is comprised of the cell. The other part of that theory is not only are living things composed of cells, they come from pre-existing cells. So that begins to have, that's when we start having this conversation about things that evolve, right? So if it's alive, then not only is it made of cells, but it had to come from a pre-existing cell. Does that make sense, Gerald, Brianna?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, explain, put it in your own words. What did we say?
That all living things have cells, and there's all organizations of, well, there's an organization.
Hmm?
There's levels of living things.
No. I want you to tell me that we're working on cell theory. And I just said over and over again, I kept saying all living things have cells, but the cell theory doesn't stop there. What's the other part of the theory?
That the lowest level of the cells carries on every action you do in life.
No, the part of the cell theory. There are two parts of the theory. One part is that all living things come from all living things are made of cells. That's part of the theory. Then you see the end here, you guys can't see my pointer, right? All right, right here. I need you guys to pay attention because this is a basic concept and I don't want you to miss it. All living organisms, they're composed of cells. But then the living organisms, not only are they composed of pre-existing cells, that's what I want you to be able to communicate to me. That is the cell theory, okay? That's the cell theory. So if we look at the lowest level of organization, the subatomic particle, right? And then we move our way up to the atom, then to the molecule. From the molecule, we end up where? What's next after the molecule? Come on, talk to me. All right, and then those organelles are in what?
Cells.
Remember, yes, in cells. So the second part of the conversation is when it comes to thinking about a cell, just one, just like this picture, one cell. at the level of the cell, this cell can form every activity required for life. That cell in it is everything that it needs for life. Because believe it or not, there are organisms that are unicellular, one cell. Okay, so that's the take-home message, guys. All organisms made of cells. Not only that, they come from pre-existing cells, just like you and I. We're made of cells, but we came from a pre-existing cell. What cells did we come from?
Our parents.
Specifically, what was it, Jock? What made us? What cells did they have that made us?
DNA.
Nope, that's not a cell.
Chromosomes.
Those aren't cells. Those aren't cells.
I want to say X and Y.
That's a chromosome.
Oh.
A sperm cell
What?
and an egg cell.
Thank you. Who was that?
I said it.
Me, Brooklyn.
What did
she
you
say?
Brooklyn, sperm cell and an egg cell.
I wanted to say that, but I ain't think that was
Yeah,
it.
I sure was sitting here thinking that. I just thought my answer was wrong, so I didn't say nothing.
Right
Yeah,
now,
I summed it up with our parents.
that's why I knew you were in the right place, but I need you to use the right vocabulary.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So it's the sperm and the egg cells. So the cell theory is that all living organisms are made of cells and come from just come out of anywhere. There is a pre-existing cell that we come from. And that cell, those individual cells, they have everything within them to perform all the activities required for life. Okay, let's keep plugging along. So what you see here are two different types of cells from two different types of organisms: prokaryotic cell, eukaryotic cell. Are composed of what?
Cells.
Cells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only are they composed of cells, they must come from,
Pre-existing cells.
oh, y'all better teach me something. So these are two different cells, right? This is a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic. What's the difference between them?
One can only be found in animals.
Eukaryotic, okay. Here we go. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus.
And the prokaryotic do not.
Okay, that's one. I heard somebody else say, gave me another one.
Membrane organelles.
Oh, you better talk to me. Membrane-bound organelles. Which ones have membrane-bound organelles?
Eukaryotic.
Eukaryotics.
Yeah, they're more developed. Okay, what else? There's something else.
Prokaryotics are unicellular.
DNA.
Okay. Eukaryotic cells, are there, eukaryotic organisms typically have more cells, right? Y'all with me? Are you eukaryotic organisms? Are you, Janaya, Nadia, Morgan, Oriana, Kelsey? Are you?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. So this is that. Okay. Remember, pro means before. EU means true. So prokaryotic cells were before what?
A nucleus.
Before a nucleus. Eukaryotic cells, the U means they. Yes, excellent. All right, so we already talked about that. Okay, we talked about DNA. A lot of you all mentioned chromosomes, and you mentioned DNA, and we mentioned parents. And so, you know, when we think about life, we think about the fact that not only is it organized, so there are all these things. That's all chapter 1 is about. This whole chapter here is all about the themes that exist when we talk about life. The themes that exist when we talk about life. Okay, what are those themes that come out when we talk about life? All right. And one of them is that life is based on heritable information. And that heritable information usually comes in the form of DNA. Now, what do I need you to know about DNA? Nucleic acid. Okay. I'm going to ask you to spell it on exams because I need you to know how to spell it. Deoxyribonucleic acids. Now, they're made of nucleotides. Okay, and they encode information in a gene. Inheritance, you inherit genes, right? We're inheriting the DNA of our parents. That inheritance is based on this copying mechanism that's very complex, and we're going to get to it at the end of the semester. It's mind-blowing. It's so mind-blowing. That information gets passed from generation to generation. Okay, the information is encoded in the DNA. It's like a secret code. It's in the DNA. The code determines, you know, how tight your curls are going to be in your hair, how thick your eyebrows are, even if you have any eyebrows, or if you get the unibrow and you got to, you know, what do you call it? Wax it off. Or if you want to just, you know, rock the unibrow, whatever. It's the DNA is responsible for providing us with all of those things that I just mentioned, okay, that you get from your parents. Okay, now, although these sequences that we get and inherit are similar, okay, they're similar in a way, right? So you have the same sequences, but that information, the way that you inherited, the way that Janiyah or Morgan or Brooklyn or Amaya or Kelsey's information comes together, it is what gives the differences between the organisms, okay? So we have similar nucleotides. So everybody has an A, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, okay? And so that information is the same. But the differences between the organisms, even between each of these tigers, even between whoever said they had that turtle and that dragon lizard, those differences reflect the different nucleotide sequences, okay? And we'll talk about that later. Everyone probably has seen this DNA ladder, okay? So deoxyribonucleic acid, what are we saying? Deoxyribose is the sugar backbone of the DNA, okay? Deoxyribose, ribose is a sugar, ose, anything that isn't ose is a sugar. So when you're eating something today, look at the back of the package, you see ose, you know it's sugar. Even though they may say sugar free, you see ose, there's sugar there, okay? Now, we're going to talk a lot about who's responsible for what. Another theme that comes out is this theme that form fits function, that form fits function. I gave you all an example, just a real life example of form fits function last time we met. What did I say? Come on. I know y'all not out there shopping while we're online in class. Talk to me. Talk to me. What was the example I gave you last time we met? Really? No one? Let's see if somebody put it in the chat. And no.
Was it the lungs and the alveoli?
That is a good one. That's a good one. I was mentioning something that I talked about that was even more bottom level than that. So you taking us to, you know, the scientific level, which is great. So we did explain, who's that, Amaya? Who's talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, so Amaya is mentioning the fact that we discussed how the alveoli within the lung, that is that bottommost part of the lung where gas exchange takes place. We talked about how thin the alveoli, they're very thin. Form fits function because the goal of the alveoli and the capillaries that are wrapped around them is gas exchange. So as long as they're thin and they remain that way, the gases can pass through very easily. Form fits function. But the example that I was talking about was the screws, the Phillips head screwdriver and the Phillips head screw, the flathead screwdriver and the flathead screw. Like those structures are necessary to fit their function. So that was the most basic concept that I was trying to get you all to connect to. Y'all remember my discussion about that? So within a structure are all the clues about what it does and how it works. And if you know a structure's function, it can give you some insight into its construction. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Next. All right. So let's think. How does this form fit its function? Form fit its function. Quickly in the chat, I want you to tell me, how does form fit function in there? I don't care what you are describing. You can talk about the leaf. You can talk about the root. Whatever you want to talk about. I want you to see this image and begin to think about what we just talked about in this previous slide, okay? Structure and function are correlated. Tell me, how does this form fit its function? Anyone raise your hand and give me a response. How does this form fit its function? What am I asking? Jock, what am I asking?
I guess the way that it's positioned, sticking out of the ground and going up, is able to receive sunlight and able to do what it's able to do, which is photosynthesis.
Okay, so the form of what is allowing it to receive that sunlight?
The form of its structure.
Of what part of it though?
Oh, the stem and the leaf.
Yep, the form of the stem and the leaf. So it needs both. If it didn't have a stem,
then it wouldn't stick up.
exactly. Form fits function. There was another hand. Good job. Who was the other hand? Anybody else?
I was the other hand, but what he was saying was what I was going to say about the stem.
Excellent. Somebody, Rhinaria, says the leaf is facing upward so it can be able to collect the solar energy, which is the same thing. Leaf facing upward allows the plant to receive proper sunlight. I think the leaf is positioned in such a way that it collects as much sunlight as possible. The form of the roots allow the plant to absorb water in the earth. Great. The form of the root helps the plant stay stable. That's really good. Good one. The roots are deep. They're spread out into the soil in order to collect. Let's do the doggone thing this morning. Yes, y'all did not come to play. All right, excellent. Excellent. And then you're going to begin to learn. One of the things that blows my mind is the fact that if you think about the impact of gravity, it, like, intuitively, the water should not be something about that allows to